Peter Valley, FBAmastery.com here. Weird video today. Look, I've documented over the last several years a literal sting operation being carried out. It involves textbook publishers, a shadowy law firm, and fake orders. Spoiler alert, if you've received an order from someone named Mike Candy anytime in the last few years, you're probably in trouble. I'm going to get into all of this. It truly is a sting operation. It truly is mildly scandalous. I am actually going to send this video to mainstream journalists, try to get them to pick this up because I think it's a big deal. Okay, so what are we going to cover? Part one, how textbook publishers declared war on Amazon sellers around 2019. I'm going to tell that story. Part two, who is ONZ Law? This is a shadowy law firm. You must understand who they are to understand the rest of the story, which starts up in part three, where I actually tell you what this sting operation is and break down exactly what's happening. It might have happened to you and you didn't even know it. Part four, how you can protect yourself. Okay, if we've not been introduced, my name is Peter Valley. I've been selling on Amazon for about 15 years. Wrote some stuff, did some things. Who cares about all that? What does matter is that I have spent a lot of time talking to Amazon sellers about this exact subject. So this video I'm bringing to you is a subject of quite a bit of legitimate, I would dare say, muckraking research on my part. So let's get into it. What's happening? So since 2019, selling textbooks on Amazon has been a little bit weird. So if you've been selling for any amount of time, you remember that up until about 2018, 2019, books were an entirely ungated category. There was no book you were not allowed to sell. And then things started to get weird. Almost overnight, it seems like a lot of Amazon sellers were unable to sell a large percentage of textbooks. And some sellers got hit a lot harder than others. Some sellers had their businesses gutted by this. Some sellers didn't get impacted that much, and it seemed to come kind of random. But there was one common denominator that was discovered once Amazon sellers started kind of talking amongst themselves. One common denominator amongst the sellers that got hit really, really hard. They all received a large textbook order from a certain buyer in Rockville, Maryland. And I'm going to give the name of this buyer here in a second. So to understand the next part of the story, before we get to the actual sting operation, you have to understand a shadowy law firm called O&Z Law. Now, I don't know if they're actually shadowy. It just sounds cooler to call them shadowy. So let's just go with that. Who is O&Z Law? You've got to understand this part to understand the rest of the story. Hey, real quick, if this video so far has not made you want to completely hurl yourself off the tallest building in town, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, but also, perhaps more importantly, head to FBAmastery.com. There's a link below this video. Get all this free stuff. You can build a whole business off of what I give away for free. Okay, let's get back to it. So O&Z Law is a law firm. They describe themselves as a boutique law firm that specializes in intellectual property and copyright related claims, and they claim to represent creative companies, I think is the tagline they use. So they were hired by textbook publishers to sue a bunch of platforms, including Amazon, over the sale of counterfeit textbooks. So who hired O&Z Law? These are some of their clients. This is taken directly off their website. If you look at these companies here, these are some of the bigger textbook publishers in the country. And also, not coincidentally, in my opinion, these are the textbook publishers whose books are most heavily restricted. This is where this law firm, the lawsuit against Amazon, and the books that are restricted all start to tie together. These are the companies you see here whose textbooks are most heavily restricted. Pearson is not on this list, I don't see here, but I think if you scroll down to the page on their website, you'll see them. But the point is, all the big textbook publishers whose textbooks were heavily restricted, and almost entirely in some cases, are clients of this law firm. Conspiracy emerges. Okay, so who did O&Z on behalf of these publishers sue? They sued Amazon, they sued Shopify, and several other platforms. And I would assert the real reason they sued, the ostensible reason was, hey, you platforms are allowing the sale of counterfeit textbooks, and so you are liable because for what you're liable for what you're selling on your platform, what you're allowed to sell. So by way of your lack of oversight, your lack of vetting of sellers, you are facilitating the sale of counterfeit textbooks, and therefore you are liable. That was basically the basis of these lawsuits. And what I would assert is this is not really about counterfeits. That's the cover story for eliminating huge numbers of Amazon textbook sellers. Because again, if you think about it, who's the biggest competition for a textbook publisher? Who cuts into their bottom line the most? Us, right? Textbook sellers, people that sell used copies of their books. You can't buy a used textbook, you have to buy their new copy, right? Huge impact on their profits. And so I see all this as a big cover story. This counterfeit thing is just a distraction for what's really happening. So here's some screenshots from different news stories about this law firm and about their actions against these platforms and their lawsuits. Just so you know, I'm not totally making this up. So yeah, they sued Amazon, they sued Shopify, and then you can see the long form of this law firm is Oppenheim and Zebra. I don't know how you pronounce. You can't be a shadowy law firm unless you got a name that's impossible to pronounce. Okay, so how are they targeting Amazon sellers? Like, what specifically is happening here? So they're placing fake orders, number one. Number two, they're reporting the books they received from those orders to Amazon as counterfeits, completely falsely. By the way, I've talked to sellers that I know intimately. These are honest sellers, completely set up. 100% fake accusations, unsubstantiated, which, by the way, if you're a journalist watching this is the real story here, is that you've got textbook publishers making claims that are unsubstantiated, they're blindly accepted by Amazon, and then use as the basis to destroy people's businesses, okay? So that's the real scandal here. So they're reporting the books they receive as counterfeit when they're absolutely not, and then they're getting sellers banned, amongst a bunch of other things. So if you think about this, and I made this point, I'm going to expand on it. Used textbooks and used booksellers, you and I are the number one enemy of textbook publishers, okay? We cut into their bottom line more than anyone else, and that will include bookstores that sell used textbooks. If you can't buy a used textbook, you've got to buy the new copy from the publisher. And publishers don't make any money off of you and I, right? All we do is cost them money. So this counterfeit fight, this, hey, you're selling counterfeits, is a fantastically, diabolically genius cover story for what, and this is my editorial here, what is probably happening, which is just a flagrant attempt to shut down as many Amazon booksellers as possible and eliminate their competition. Okay, now we're getting to the fun part of this video, you guys. This is the actual sting operation, exactly what's being carried out. As far as we know, this is still happening to this day. But this has been documented going back at least until 2019. Okay, so step number one, these people, whoever they are, whether it's a law firm, whether it's someone acting on behalf of these textbook publishers, places a fake order with you and I, Amazon booksellers. Anyone selling textbooks gets a fake order placed with them. When I say fake, meaning it's for the purpose of the sting operation, not to actually have the textbooks, okay? So they place a textbook order. It's usually a large textbook order. What I'm hearing is that it's usually orders of like 3 or more books at a time, which is, if you're selling on Amazon, that's unusual, right? To get 3 book orders in one order, a little unusual. So large orders, sometimes 10 textbooks or more, okay? And these textbooks would be ordered by a Mike Candy. Now, a little sidebar here. We could theorize as to if there's an inside joke here behind the name Mike Candy. Sounds like my candy, like bait, like you bait the kids into the white van or whatever. Right? Mike Candy, like they're dangling candy out to bait people into some kind of trap, right? That's kind of what sounds like maybe what the inside joke is here. Okay, but let's put that aside. Mike Candy places an order. Probably fictional person named Mike Candy. The orders go to on a Wyaconda Road address in Rockville, Maryland. That's how it started. And then Amazon sellers started to figure them out. And there was, I don't want to say too much, there were some shenanigans, some pranks that were carried out. I don't want to say too much here, but I think they figured out that we were onto them as Amazon booksellers and as a community. And so they switched up their address to, kind of ironically, a UPS store in Silver Springs, Maryland. I have this like crazy image of like, what if there was like an Amazon seller coming in to drop off their textbooks, their shipment, FBA shipment, right as like the textbook, the law firm people were coming out from checking their mailbox, going the other way. And I don't know. I think worlds might have collided there. So they switched out. In all likelihood, there's some other address they're using now. That's just the latest news I have. Okay, that's number one. Place the order. Number two, they report the seller to Amazon as having sold a counterfeit textbook. I cannot stress this enough. 100% lie. Okay, these are good sellers. I've talked to some. I know some of them very well. Sellers they're sourcing. Oftentimes they're sourcing on Amazon. So these are like online arbitrage books, or sourcing elsewhere. They know what a counterfeit textbook looks like. They're not hard to see. So they were being falsely reported as having sold counterfeit textbooks to Amazon, okay? And that's where step 3 comes in. These textbook publishers make the fake reports, and then guess what happens? These sellers get punished by Amazon, which can take many forms. So usually one or more of these things would happen. The seller would suddenly be unable to sell large numbers of textbooks, sometimes gutting their business. Sometimes they get shut down altogether. They would get some kind of policy violation dinged from Amazon. There was nothing to happen. They get dinged by Amazon. And number 3, they would get a letter sometimes. I didn't hear about this one as much, but they get a letter from the law firm. And I never actually saw a copy of it, so I can't say exactly what it said. But I did talk to one seller who showed the letter from the law firm, this ONZ Law, to a lawyer. And the lawyer looked at it and goes, "Oh, yeah, that's an extortion letter. That belongs right there," and pointing to his trash can. So So there were any seller, hopefully, that sought counsel here just threw the letter in the trash and did not respond to it. But I think the letter asked for, I don't even remember. I don't even know what the letter said. So here's some screenshots of some emails I received, as well as just some chatter from different Facebook groups and things. I'll just kind of thumb through these. You can pause the video if you want to zoom in, but you can see sellers talking here very like intimately and specifically about what they're dealing with, getting orders from ONZ Law, getting dinged by Amazon, facing like some severe restrictions, and going back and seeing, oh, I got an order from Mike Candy, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Again, just pause if you want to like dig a little deeper into what's going on here, but that's just some screenshots. Okay, so this diabolical scheme is a textbook publisher's dream, right? So if you're a textbook publisher, you can actually shut down and this has happened. This is past tense. I mean, it's probably still happening, but like many sellers have been shut down by this sting operation. And so it's an absolute wild fantasy on your part, because you can shut down huge amounts of your competition under this pretext of fighting counterfeit textbooks, or whatever sort of white horse they seem to think they're riding on, right? Or claim to be riding on. They're actually shutting down large numbers of legitimate sellers. Okay, so here's my conspiracy theory, and this is, again, my editorial. This is not established, but the evidence points to what I'm going to tell you right now. My theory is this, that Amazon sellers, because we don't know the outcome of the lawsuit against Amazon. So my theory is this, that Amazon and the textbook publishers entered into a deal, like a settlement of sorts. And that settlement allowed these textbook publishers to have audit powers over us, Amazon booksellers. And so what the audit powers allowed them to do is place these orders, and then anything they reported to Amazon that they documented as counterfeit, they would report to Amazon. Amazon would, apparently without scrutiny, would then go ahead and take action against these sellers. So absolutely scandalous, total fox guarding the henhouse scenario here, where Amazon, again, seemingly, this is just my theory, gave a blank check to textbook publishers, like, anything that you tell us is confirmed as a counterfeit, we will take action against that seller. And that seems to be what's happening. And so, and I believe it relates to the lawsuit, but again, a lot of this we just don't know. So you're coming this far, you might be wondering, like, well, like, what can I do to protect myself? The answer is really, there's not much. There really isn't anything you can do. Again, it's not selling counterfeit textbooks is not an adequate safeguard, because as far as I know, every single person they've reported is selling counterfeit textbooks is not. Like, maybe if you were selling books on Amazon, you know that encountering a counterfeit textbook is pretty rare. I've come across like maybe a few, and I've sold God knows how many books, right? So I would say the majority, if not 100% of the textbooks they ordered as part of the sting operation were not counterfeits at all. So not selling counterfeits does not protect you, unfortunately. If you're a merch fulfilled seller, one thing you can do, if you see a large textbook order from the DC area, just go ahead and cancel it. Unfortunately, as an FBA seller, you can't cancel orders. Nothing you can do about it. But it's possible they've like changed names by now, that Mike Candy's not the name they're using. Who knows, right? By the time you're watching this, what you could do, it might just be for fun. It doesn't really help you, but you can go through your orders. And if you see any like large textbook order, you can just go ahead and see if the name was Mike Candy. As far as I know, there's no way to search by name, but you can just kind of thumb through your orders, and it just might just be like, have some, I don't know, just like curiosity, like sake. I went through my orders and I didn't find one, but especially if you've been restricted really heavily, you'll probably find an order from Mike Candy in your history. So that's it, you guys. Big Textbook is watching you. Be very careful out there. It's a war zone. We're up against some very powerful people with a lot of money. And as I show you to the door, I have to remind you, you can build an entire business off of what I give away for free. So the best way to capitalize on this is hit the link below this video. Go to fbamastery.com. You can get all the free stuff you see here. And of course, the obligatory subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the video and all that. Thank you guys for watching. Catch you in the next video.